Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star episode number 405 based on novel. So let's start. Purple Moon Ancestor frowned as the candidates fell one after another, including Dear Bugmaster, whom he had the best hope for. He failed? Purple Moon Ancestor frowned. Then who got it? That human from the original universe? Eastern Emperor? Or other powers? Purple Moon Ancestor was anxious, but he couldn't tell which one got the inheritance. He could only tell that the human from the original universe had the best chance. Eastern Emperor, and I need the inheritance from Duandong River. Purple Moon Ancestor thought. It's either that human Milky Way or blue blood from Eastern Emperor Holy Land. They have the best hope. Eastern Emperor must know which one got the inheritance. Purple Moon Ancestor nodded mildly. I'll see how Eastern Emperor Holy Land behaves to see whether Luo Feng's still alive or not. In a dimension space of Eastern Emperor Holy Land, the candidates who were originally sitting on the leaves of a towering ancient tree all fell, and some of the bodies dropped from the tree, diving. Eastern Emperor snorted. He saw the body of Blue Blood Knight not far from him, and he said, Human Milky Way Horde Leader, Luo Feng? All of the candidates dying at the same time shocked the entire universe ocean. The inheritance from Duandong River was craved by the almost 100 powers in Universe Ocean, as it was a great way for them to transcend incarnation. Who got it? The human or Eastern Emperor Holy Land? Which power got the inheritance? All the major powers in Universe Ocean were anxious and confused. However, other than Eastern Emperor Holy Land, nobody knew who got the inheritance. Eastern Emperor Holy Land knew because they saw Blue Blood Knight, which meant it was almost certain that it was that human, Milky Way Horde leader. I've made the breakthrough and become the new inheritor of Duandong River. Luo Feng sent an email to Huge Axe Creator and Primal Chaos City Leader, and he disregarded the shock within the human race. Instead, he went to see Duandong River. The stone pillars had stereoscopic phantoms on them, and a man in a white cape was stood among them. When Luo Feng wrote the email to tell Huge Axe Creator and Primal Chaos City Leader, the White Cape Man smiled as he knew what the email was about. The silent war in Universe Ocean determined the fate of races, and we humans won. Teacher Origin smiled. He knew. He wasn't sure whether he could be free of suppression before the destruction of the original universe during this universe era, but the human race was destined to have a bright future, and it was likely that the Third Holy Land would be that of the human race. At the same time, the email was sent to Huge Axe Creator and Primal Chaos City Leader. Space of Inheritance. Other candidates, die? The cold, robotic voice was still echoing beside Luo Feng's ears. He turned his head and saw a figure flying in. It was the elegant Duandong River. At the moment, Duandong River was wearing white armor with golden stars on it, beautiful boots, and a hat. Master Duandong River. Luo Feng gave a salutation. Don't call me master. Duandong River smiled. You can call me teacher. I'm Duandong River of the last generation, and you're the latest generation. I'm your teacher and your guide as well. Duandong River looked at the three icebergs in the distance. He waved his hands, and the three icebergs turned into nothing. Luo Feng turned around. He lamented the loss of the three icebergs, for he considered them precious. Ha ha. 820 basic inheritances, you can study them whenever you want. Duandong River smiled. These are all just easy tricks for you to relax with. Duandong River values the core inheritance. Core inheritance? Luo Feng's interest was piqued. Follow me. Duandong River flew out, seeing a space exit outside. Luo Feng followed. He flew out and saw 820 gleaming entrances floating in the sky. Hide. Duandong River glanced around, and the entrances all disappeared. This interested Luo Feng. Duandong River smiled. This is where every generation of Duandong River receives the inheritance. It's a very precious valuable. Much more precious than those so-called supreme true treasures, and it's more special even than some miniature universes. It has lots of individual dimensional spaces, and they form 820 portals connected to the 820 basic inheritances. Luo Feng nodded. He only needed to view this space of inheritance as a special miniature universe. Go. Duandong River took Luo Feng, and with his absolute control over the space of inheritance, he moved Luo Feng to the deeper area of the space of inheritance. Luo Feng saw the change in scenery. He was standing at the top of the mountain. He looked down, and all he could see was mist flowing around the mountain. He wasn't able to see the land at all. Where is this? Luo Feng was shocked. This is the apex of the main area of the space of inheritance, said Duandong River. Look there. He followed Duandong River. Luo Feng saw a human sculpture. He had long hair and deep eyes and was wearing battle armor. It looked like an ordinary human sculpture, but Luo Feng could feel the power contained in it after looking at it for only a few seconds. It was an aloof and special power that was far beyond Luo Feng's understanding. Apparently, the power contained in that sculpture was far beyond Luo Feng's level. He couldn't even identify it at first. This is the third ancestral teacher. Duandong River's eyes were filled with awe. His name is Duandong River Ju Yi Saint King. Luo Feng was dazed. Duandong River Ju Yi Saint King? What a weird name. I am the 192nd inheritor, said Duandong River. My name is Duandong River Shenju Wu. Luo Feng was even more confused. He had thought the full name of this Duandong River was Duandong River Wu. Your future name will be Duandong River Luo Feng. Duandong River looked at Luo Feng. Each generation of Duandong River has the same first name but different last names. Before I became the 192nd Duandong River, my name was Shenju. Luo Feng understood now. The real name of the third ancestral teacher must have been Ju Yi. The third ancestral teacher, Duandong River, gazed at the sculpture in awe. He's the greatest being of Duandong River. The first ancestral teacher was powerful as well, but he was only a supreme being in my civilization. So was the second ancestral teacher. However, the third ancestral teacher was the truly amazing one. He spread the fame of Duandong River, and he stands among the pinnacle beings. Don't use terms like Universe Supreme Masters. It's a joke in my homeland. Duandong River shook his head. The so-called Universe Supreme Masters are called true gods in my hometown. Those weaker than true gods, undying fighters, Universe Knights, and Universe Masters, those are the same. True God is a threshold for supreme beings in my homeland. Although it's considered a great being, it's far away from being at the pinnacle. Even I have never reached that level. Luo Feng listened carefully. He had already deduced that Universe Supreme Masters were called true gods in the ancient civilization. It was little wonder that when the 7 true masters had fought huge axe creator, the strange beast kept yelling, "True God," and "Eternal True God." The third ancestral teacher actually stood among the top beings, exclaimed Duandong River. He was also awed by all the great beings, so he was qualified to have the character for saint behind his name. And when he'd reached his full power, he gained the character for king. He was king of the saints. The real top being. I was also awed by countless great beings, but I was far away from being called saint. I could only earn the character Wu. Wu? He had earned that character? He seemed to have gotten the character from someone else. As for saints and kings, those needed to be recognized by countless great beings. The third ancestral teacher stood at the top, and he perfected the inheritance of Duandong River. Though none of the latter inheritors could reach the level of the third generation ancestral teacher, Duandong River has never stopped. There were 9 who could be called saints. Duandong River is the most powerful inheritance even in my entire civilization. Luo Feng was shocked. He felt so lucky. If an inheritance could have a pinnacle being, it could surely be considered one of the most powerful inheritances. Come and kneel in front of your third generation ancestral teacher, said Duandong River. You're the 193rd inheritor. Luo Feng nodded and walked to the futon made for groveling. He kneeled down and kowtowed. His head hit the rock. Immediately, countless streaks of black light came out of the photon where Luo Feng was kneeling and flooded Luo Feng's body. At the same time, the sculpture of the third ancestral teacher emitted light and shone upon Luo Feng's body. Inherit. Duandong River watched in silence. He looked relieved. It was a simple groveling, yet it was the most important step, inherit. Even with Luo Feng's willpower, he couldn't help grunting. A trace of black light and a trace of white light were inserted between his eyebrows. A strange inheritance mark was formed. Duandong River couldn't help shaking his body. He thought, Duandong River Luo Feng. From now on, you are Duandong River. Luo Feng grabbed onto the rocks with both hands. His entire body was trembling. Involuntarily, he looked up. As though he was being forcibly branded with an imprint right in the middle of his brows, a black and white intersecting mark appeared, and a short while later, it was completely hidden and vanished from sight. It could no longer be observed. Luo Feng could not control himself. His body continued to tremble. He opened his eyes and looked toward Duandong River, who stood beside him. This is too agonizing. This is the imprint that generations of Duandong River descendants had, Duandong River said. It is created by our third-generation ancestor, and every generation will inherit it. Once inherited, it will be easy to conform to the entire space of inheritance. Being branded with the imprint is a must, as this is the only way to get the space of inheritance to recognize one as its master, and only those who have gained control over this space can receive the true inheritance of the pulse of my Duandong River. Luo Feng nodded. The more unique a true treasure was, the more troublesome it was in getting it to recognize its master. Such situations were similar to getting Star Tower and the White Wings to recognize Luo Feng as their master, and this space of inheritance was a treasure that the pulse of Duandong River used to hand over its inheritance. It was more precious than a miniature universe and much more precious than any supreme true treasure. Thus, getting it to recognize its master, how complicated a process would that be? Only those branded with the imprint could attempt to get it to recognize them as its master. I might have been annihilated, but I left behind my virtual consciousness. Duandong River looked toward Luo Feng. With my actual thoughts, memories, and character as a template, I have created this consciousness. In this way, I could slowly wait for the next heir to come forth and receive the inheritance. I am able to leave behind this virtual consciousness. This is also a means achievable within this space of inheritance. He laughed. The space of inheritance has a wealth of functions. It is a treasure that 3 generations of ancestors specially created for our inheritance. Later on, you will find out more about every one of these functions. As my virtual consciousness is still in control over this space of inheritance, you are unable to get it to recognize you as its master for the time being. It is a must for me to give up control voluntarily to make it possible for you to get it to recognize its master. Before it recognizes you, you must do one thing. Duandong River looked at Luo Feng. Luo Feng said with due respect, "Teacher, please guide me." "Take an oath," Duandong River said sternly. "Repeat after me." Luo Feng nodded and listened intently. Duandong River said slowly in a solemn tone, "I hereby take this oath, in the name of a newly appointed Duandong River, with the imprint of the inheritance as witness. I, Duandong River Luo Feng, will not allow the core inheritance of the pulse of Duandong River to fall in the hands of outsiders. If I should break my oath, then my soul shall be annihilated." "Must I?" Luo Feng looked at Duandong River. "You must." Duandong River nodded. "Otherwise, you shall be annihilated, and I shall have to choose another heir." Luo Feng nodded and repeated as instructed. "I hereby take this oath, in the name of a newly appointed Duandong River, with the imprint of the inheritance as witness. I, Duandong River Luo Feng, will not allow the core inheritance of the pulse of Duandong River to fall in the hands of outsiders. If I should break my oath, then my soul shall be annihilated." His voice echoed, in his ears and in his mind. The imprint between his brows lit up, and his words were transmitted in short bouts into the depths of his soul. "If I should break my oath, then my soul shall be annihilated. Then my soul shall be annihilated. Then my soul shall be annihilated." These words reverberated persistently within his soul. Luo Feng frowned, as he had doubts. Then he glanced at Duandong River standing beside him. Duandong River nodded knowingly. "This imprint of the inheritance will stay with you for your lifetime. I know you are a universe knight. You are capable of resurrection. Yet, even upon rebirth, you will still carry on this imprint for eternity. If you break your vow, this imprint of the inheritance will annihilate your soul. Even if you were to be resurrected, you would face annihilation over again. The vicious cycle of resurrection and annihilation would replay over and over again." Luo Feng shuddered. "Of course, so long as you do not let the core inheritance fall into the hands of outsiders, nothing will go wrong." Duandong River nodded. "All right, before you get this space of inheritance to recognize you as its master, I shall tell you about some of the most important information and treasures. Follow me." Duandong River pointed far into the void space ahead, and a space door appeared. Duandong River and Luo Feng flew right through that space door, one after the other. All over, the place was filled with endless water. And right in the middle, there was a miniature island. On the island was an ordinary wooden house, and before the wooden house was a curved pond. Duan Dong River landed beside the pond. This space is known to be one of the most important out of the various spaces found in the space of inheritance. Duan Dong River pointed to a spot above the pond. You see that? The three black stones suspended above the water surface? Luo Feng looked over. The pond was not big, yet the three, smooth, crystal-like black stones were suspended above it, floating persistently. This is called the memory stone, also known as the inheritance stone, Duan Dong River said. It can store a large quantity of memories. Even if a super great being has a large amount of memory to be stored, saving every bit of information will still be very easy. He added solemnly, these three stones are said to be the root of the pulse of my Duan Dong River. Root? Luo Feng felt a jolt. Take a look inside the pond. Duan Dong River said. Then, with a wave of his hand, all the water in the pond flew up in an instant, revealing numerous black stones at the bottom of the pond. At first glance, Luo Feng thought there could be as many as hundreds of thousands of stones. Now, take a look at the vast ocean. Duan Dong River waved his hand again. An immeasurable amount of water from the vast ocean surrounding the miniature island started to float with a rumble. It was as though there had been a reversal between heaven and earth, where all the ocean water floated up to the sky, leaving the earth below empty, thus revealing numerous ocean trenches and undersea valleys. With a single glance, given Luo Feng's range of view, he caught occasional glimpses of black stones. All those are memory stones, Duan Dong River told him. These three are the roots. They make up the essence of the core inheritance. It is the noblest contribution that 3 generations of ancestors had left for the pulse of my Duan Dong River. In that pond, there is a total of 12,002 memory stones, and they all belong to the core inheritance. Duan Dong River laughed. However, these stones represent different kinds of memories related to fields of study, close combat, far-range attacks, refining treasures, automatons, and many more. They also contain techniques and methods of cultivation. Any given stone would be enough to drive everyone from Universe Ocean into a frenzy. Within that vast ocean, as many as hundreds of millions of memory stones were scattered about randomly. Duan Dong River laughed again. Those were left behind by the great beings from the pulse of my Duan Dong River. As they roamed and wandered, they continuously gathered all kinds of information covering a comprehensive range of content which they considered all-encompassing. As for information on the basic skills of my home civilization, I should think at least 90% are recorded. Of course, the records are very elementary. It is like receiving the basic inheritance, the idea is the same. Luo Feng was tingling with excitement. A library. This was just like a super library, or, rather, templates left behind by that ancient civilization. By relying on the millions of memory stones in that vast ocean, it was possible to replicate the mid to low power range of that ancient civilization. After all, the information was very basic. These 12,002 memory stones, Duan Dong River said, pointing to the bottom of the pond, are the pride of generations of heirs. These were their hearts and souls. Of course, there were some gathered that also contain important information on cultivation, and these are priceless. Every memory stone is more than enough to set off a war. These 3 are even more likely to set off a war among the superpowers in my home. Remember, all the information within these 3 and the 12,002 stones must not fall into the hands of outsiders. Understood, Luo Feng replied. Try using your godly power to unwrap these 3 memory stones, Duan Dong River said. You have the inheritance imprint. The 3 memory stones will acknowledge you and transfer all the inheritance they contain over to you. Luo Feng held his breath. The essence of the core inheritance. He stood at the apex of knowledge for which 3 generations of ancestors were most proud. 3 invisible godly powers extended out to speedily envelop the 3 black stones, and the moment they came into contact, the 3 black stones started to radiate a faint glow. On the surface, ancient and complex engravings started to appear. Then an influx of information surged and charged its way into Luo Feng's mind. It was a tremendous amount of information being transmitted to him in such an overwhelming amount. Even with Luo Feng's speed of inheriting, the complete transmission took him 1 full day. Duan Dong River stood aside and watched with a smile as Luo Feng opened a pair of eyes filled with shock and disbelief. It was only 3 sets of lost knowledge. The core of the entire pulse of Duan Dong River, its true essence, was none other than these 3 sets of lost knowledge. They were named Duan, Dong, and River. Duan was the abbreviation for Duan Mia, which meant annihilation. It was a unique set of lost knowledge that could bring about an accelerated upsurge of all the power of a godly body or just a normal flesh and blood body within a short period of time. It could also cause the ability of a body to improve by hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of times in terms of strength. This set of lost knowledge, if simply put across, was somewhat similar to self-destruction, because self-destruction was the process of gathering all the energy within a body to bring about an outburst of power. Normally, during self-destruction, two things would happen. 1. The power of an attack would be scattered in all directions. 2. Once self-destruction was activated, the user would also be annihilated. However, Duan Mie, the core inheritance created by 3 generations of ancestors, was entirely different. It allowed the great being to control the rate at which it was being burned. For instance, within 3 seconds, the entire godly body could be completely burned. The power was controllable. It could be brought to an outburst that was stronger than normal by innumerable times, or could be controlled to last only for 1 fleeting second during a battle, or even controlled by bringing it to a complete halt instantly. Furthermore, during battles, the accuracy of the power could be controlled when attacking components. Duan allowed a great being to skip stages when using it to annihilate enemies. That was why this set of lost knowledge was formidable. Dong was the abbreviated name for Donghua, which meant East Brilliance, and was a set of lost knowledge on escaping. Once executed, a great being could transform into a stream of brilliance. The speed was unbelievably fast, so fast as to easily traverse layers of space. This was the most formidable escape technique of the pulse of Duan Dong River. River was short for Undying River, which was a set of lost knowledge that taught the skill of becoming undying. Just like any flesh and blood life form, when they become undying fighters, universe knights, or universe masters, their godly bodies would be converted into a more intangible form of energy. And once they achieved their breakthrough to become universe supreme masters, they would, on the contrary, be reverted back to their origin. When various identities combined as one, the more intangible godly body would take a more concrete form composed of flesh and blood. This would be truly a flesh and blood life form. Although part of a flesh and blood body could also be burned up and converted to energy like a godly body, ultimately, it was still a flesh and blood life form. Normally, annihilating a universe master or universe supreme master through soul attacks would deprive opponents any chances for resurrections, yet when relying on Undying River, the moment this knowledge had been cultivated to a certain degree, any great being would be able to isolate part of its divided body from its main body. Also, another instance of utilizing this knowledge was hiding a mere drop of blood. Even if the divided body of a great being was hit by a soul attack and all of it was annihilated, after undergoing unique refining, this drop of blood of the annihilated body could remain unscathed. Thereafter, it could spend some time to speedily absorb energy and take up its original form again. That would make an undying fighter. Duan Mie allowed its user to achieve an outburst of extreme power when faced with opponents in battle. Donghua, used for escaping, was incomparably formidable. Even if there was no way to escape, one could always rely on Undying River to effect a resurrection. The 3 sets of lost knowledge. Relying on these 3 sets of lost knowledge, every generation of Duan Dong River would only have 1 set of the 3 lost knowledges, yet every generation would see the emergence of 1 terrifying figure. Indeed, they are worthy to be called the lost knowledges of 3 generations of ancestors. Indeed, they are worthy to be called the core of the entire pulse of Duan Dong River. These are simply, certainly, extremely powerful. Luo Feng was tongue-tied. It was no wonder this was the most top-notch inheritance of that ancient civilization, and only a favored elite could inherit it. It was more than enough to drive any great being mad with jealousy. No wonder East Emperor Holy Land and Purple Moon Holy Land coveted it. The 2 ancestors must have long ago heard of certain information regarding the inheritance of the pulse of Duan Dong River. The pond water and endless ocean water were all suspended in midair. Duan Dong River said with a solemn expression, when one is weak, there is still room for improvement, as he can still work hard to cultivate and achieve breakthroughs one by one. But things are different when one gets stronger. Any superior great being has to go through countless battles and fights. This is the only way to train and hone skills. For example, to become a true god, or what you all would call a universe supreme master, you will have to go through countless killings to gain extensive experience before you can finally achieve a breakthrough. When starting from the stage of a true god, to continue ascending, every step would entail great difficulty. Great beings are life forms who tread between life and death but eventually stand firm till the end. Luo Feng heard him and nodded. He agreed with what Duan Dong River said. In fact, from his perspective, to become a universe supreme master, he had to achieve his breakthrough after experiencing battles and fights in which he could hone his skills and abilities. This was how Sitting Mountain Guest and Primal Chaos City Leader had felt in the past, when they sent him out to wander and venture, to steel himself for future breakthroughs. Universe Masters, Universe Supreme Masters, true gods. All had to tread the paths between life and death. There are many talented ones, and also many determined ones, Du and Dong River said softly. Perhaps for them, they could still make small achievements. But to truly stand on the highest peak, what great being could get there without the help of opportunities? It is impossible for a great being to solely depend on his own ability to make it to the pinnacle. The pulse of my Du and Dong River has three most important sets of lost knowledge. When you find yourself dealing with countless life and death battles, they will reduce your chances of being annihilated to the lowest possibility. Of course, even if you manage to escape annihilation, it does not mean that you are undying for sure. Generations of heirs from the pulse of my Du and Dong River died, one by one. Even our 3 generations of ancestors are dead, Du and Dong River shook his head. Which is why one must never, ever take this lightly. Luo Feng nodded, then smiled. The powerful beings we have in our current generation cannot hold a candle to that civilization, so all is fine. It is not that simple. Du and Dong River gently shook his head. Not that simple? Luo Feng was taken aback. What do you mean? First, take a closer look at the 3 sets of lost knowledge you have obtained, Du and Dong River said. Luo Feng immediately started to look more thoroughly. As the 3 sets of lost knowledge each contained an unbelievable amount of information, the memory transmission alone took a long time. And the memory transmission was merely the process of shoving all the information into Luo Feng's memory. Luo Feng still had to take much time to slowly read through them all. With Luo Feng's reading speed, even studying one set of lost knowledge, Du and Mie, took more than 10 days before he finally registered a change in expression. Found it? Du and Dong River's expression was hard to read. How come it's gone? Luo Feng was shocked as he turned to look at Du and Dong River. Du and Mie was left behind by 3 generations of ancestors. According to the introduction of the entire set of lost knowledge, it should be massive with a total of 9 volumes. Why are there only the first 3 most basic volumes? What about the next 6? I certainly detected those within my memory, but I just cannot read them. Why is this happening? It was a weird feeling. It was like having a vague memory of a certain thing, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not fully recall it. All of the lost knowledge, Du and Mie, was in his memory. He could detect them within his memory, but he just could not recall the remaining 6 volumes. This forgotten feeling came to him before when he was still young, back when his power was extremely weak, but since becoming a super great being, everything that he had gone through in his lifetime, every bit of memory, was easy to look back upon. Not the slightest bit was forgotten. It is because the first 3 volumes set the limit to where the true God stage can cultivate up to, Du and Dong River said. The limit of the true God stage? Luo Feng seemed to vaguely recall something. 3 sets of lost knowledge, and these, Du and Dong River pointed to the black stones at the bottom of the pond. And those? Then he pointed toward the scattered black stones in the vast ocean. All the information, even if you transmit all your memories, the most you can see would be the pinnacle of the true God stage, Du and Dong River elaborated. Various information from any level higher than this, you will not be able to view. Why is this so? Luo Feng was filled with doubts, but he was not bothered. Being unable to read those was not a big deal to him. In any case, there were detailed records of the endless information within the inheritance stones from a normal undying to the pinnacle of a universe supreme master. For him, that was enough. After all, he was only a universe knight. But he was certain that he had the memories in his mind. Who could have so wordlessly, and without a trace, prevented him from looking through his own memories? Because, Du and Dong River's gaze was adrift as he sighed softly. That is the willpower of the primal universe. Willpower of the primal universe? Luo Feng was taken aback. That's it. Du and Dong River nodded with a sigh. The primal universe is the most massive celestial body in all of Universe Ocean. Given such an immense celestial body, every moment, the amount of chaotic energy it consumes is terrifying. Compared to it, the universe boast is simply, Du and Dong River shook his head. Luo Feng nodded. The universe boat might have been big, but if it was compared to the primal universe, it was like a paper boat compared to the sun. If you are living in the primal universe, then being a part of the primal universe will ensure that all is fine for you. Du and Dong River nodded. However, if you are no longer a member of the primal universe no longer protects you. That is where trouble arises. In the universe ocean, who is the most powerful? It is not a matter of who, it is the willpower of the primal universe. Du and Dong River said. Your powers are weak, but you all should be able to feel that. When you fight battles against true gods, the willpower of the primal universe will help you. No matter where you are within the universe ocean, it will help you all. The powers of the true gods will all be suppressed. All their godly powers will completely be suppressed by it. Luo Feng nodded. Yes. Indeed, it would. The willpower of the primal universe was such a massive thing that no one could put up a resistance against it. Teacher Origin had previously fought with the willpower of the Origin, and as a result, he was eternally suppressed. The entire primal universe has it as its backing, said Duan Dong River. The power that the willpower of the Origin can unleash is totally out of your wildest imaginations. He snorted, how do you think this universe boat ended up so battered and shattered? Suddenly, Duan Dong River's expression changed. I cannot say further. Duan Dong River looked toward Luo Feng and added solemnly, there are some things I cannot tell you. You just need to know that throughout the entire universe ocean, there is nowhere that the origin of the primal universe does not have control over. Fortunately, it is only a simple willpower that was formed by the massive universe law and does not have any desires. Otherwise, I have no idea what it would become. If you want to transcend it, there is only one way. Duan Dong River looked at Luo Feng. Break through a reincarnation. Break through a reincarnation, and you will find yourself in a whole new setting. Information related to the pulse of my Duan Dong River is stored in those memory stones. For now, you can only see up to the true God stage, but the moment you make it through a reincarnation, you can see everything. Luo Feng gave a slight nod. Although Duan Dong River did not say much, Luo Feng vaguely realized that, in the beginning, when Duan Dong River and the numerous great beings of that civilization boarded the universe boat, there were implications related to the willpower of the primal universe. Thereafter, the destruction of the universe boat was likely due to the willpower of the primal universe. You and I are different, said Duan Dong River. You are a member of the primal universe. Or at least up until now, you still are. He laughed. This is why you are protected by it. Suddenly, Duan Dong River waved. The black stones scattered beneath the suspended, endless ocean waters, the wide ocean trenches, and the underground valleys, as well as those at the bottom of the pond before them, all flew up into the air and made their way to Duan Dong River. Very quickly, Duan Dong River stored everything. With a rumble, the vast ocean water and pond water suspended high up in the sky fell. Follow me. Duan Dong River pointed somewhere ahead. Before them, ripples started to form and gave rise to a space entrance. Luo Feng followed obediently. Both entered the space entrance one after the other and quickly arrived in a new space. It was a vast world with seemingly no boundaries to speak of. The surroundings were an endless darkness, and what they stood on was a piece of land with a diameter that was only as big as over 10 kilometers. This is a space where time is accelerated. Duan Dong River pointed far into the endless darkness. This darkness seems to have no boundaries, but in truth, all of these are not real. This space for time acceleration is small. It only consists of this piece of land. A smaller area will allow a smaller energy consumption when making use of time acceleration, he added with a laugh. I would have long ago been annihilated. My control alone can only bring time acceleration to 10,000 times. As for you, the stronger your godly power gets, the moment you start manipulating it, time acceleration will naturally get faster. Under the influence of time acceleration, you will be able to extend the time you need for cultivation. Duan Dong River waved, and a single black stone floated before Luo Feng. Actually, I have been lonely for countless reincarnation eras. I have so much to say, so much to entrust, and so many proud moments of the pulse of my Duan Dong River that I want to share with you. Duan Dong River shook his head slowly. However, when you received the 3 sets of lost knowledge, I suddenly realized that I was actually annihilated long ago. What more can I not bear to part with? So I have recorded everything into this memory stone. It will tell you all I want you to know, and it records every single secret of the entire space of inheritance. After seeing it for yourself, you will understand everything. Duan Dong River looked up at the boundless darkness. Then, squatting down, he grabbed some mud from the ground and sniffed. He smiled and said, I was dead long ago. What you see of me now is nothing more than an image of a virtual consciousness. Virtual. I am merely something virtual. I was never a life form in the first place. Duandong River was shattered into bits and pieces. Then he vanished. Teacher! Duandong River! Luo Feng shouted. But he was the only one left. Luo Feng was in a daze. This? He was trapped in a place like this. How could he find the way out? Streams of light rays appeared amidst the vast darkness and speedily charged over to enshroud him. Luo Feng looked toward the sky where streaks of black and white light rays were falling upon him. There was nowhere to hide as they all gathered and approached Luo Feng. The imprint of inheritance between Luo Feng's brows appeared automatically. The imprint, which consisted of intertwining black and white lines, started to revolve. Endless light rays surged into Luo Feng's body. Then peace and quiet were restored. An incomparable sense of affinity grew in Luo Feng's heart as he looked around him. With an intention in mind, a seedling suddenly emerged from the ground and started to grow. It grew lusher. More started to spread out. In a short moment, over 10 kilometers of land had transformed into a meadow. Recognizing its master? Luo Feng was taken aback. The space of inheritance had recognized him as its master. Although he still felt a little unfamiliar, he could sense the entire space of inheritance. Duandong River has voluntarily given up all his control rights. Luo Feng looked to his side, where Duandong River had been grabbing mud from the ground just moments ago. He recalled what Duandong River had said earlier. Suddenly, Luo Feng realized that Duandong River might have disappeared for good. In this universe ocean, only he, the 193rd generation of Duandong River, remained. This video will end here.